email was never built for privacy. It's closer to a digital postcard than a sealed letter, bouncing through and sitting on servers you don't control. On top of that, mainstream providers like Gmail read and analyze everything that's inside. Email isn't going anywhere in our society. It is baked into how the digital world communicates. But luckily, there are ways to make your emails more private. One tool that you can use is called PGP. In this video, I'll explain what PGP is and show you how providers like Proton Mail make it super easy to encrypt the contents of every email that you send. You don't need to allow companies like Google to scan and analyze all your private conversations. You can take those conversations out of their reach. Let's start by understanding what PGP is. It was created by Phil Zimmerman in the early 90s, and it's one of the oldest and most powerful tools for email privacy.
PGP started out as a human rights project. Back in the 1980s, I was an activist for the Nuclear Weapons Freeze campaign. Grassroots activists needed protection from their own governments, not just in the US, but also in many other countries that have autocratic governments.
PGP stands for Pretty Good Privacy, as a partly tongue-in-cheek response to the fact that when Zimmerman released PGP in 1991, strong encryption was treated by the US government as a weapon. Pretty Good Privacy was an intentionally understated name and a quiet way of smuggling world-class privacy tech to the public at a time when the government didn't want people to have it.
Governments live in a golden age of surveillance. Everything that we do is surveilled. And so by encrypting our email, text messaging, our phone calls, we're trying to hang on for dear life to a little bit of privacy that we have left.
Basically, Zimmerman wanted ordinary people, not just governments and intelligence agencies, to have access to strong cryptography. And Pretty Good Privacy sounded modest and harmless, and downplayed what PGP actually was: one of the strongest civilian encryption tools ever created. So how does PGP work? At a high level, PGP locks your message in a way that only the recipient can unlock it. That means even if someone intercepts the email, whether it's a hacker, your ISP, or a government agency, they only see scrambled text. Behind the scenes, your device does this in 2 steps, using a public-private key pair and a session key. If you're not interested in the mechanics and just want to know how to use this inside Proton Mail, you can skip ahead. For the rest of you, think of this 2-part process like this. You write a private message and put it in a box. You lock the box. You have to get the key to the recipient, so you send the key along with the locked box. The problem is that anyone who intercepts the package could steal the key and open the box. So you put the key itself inside a second lock. This second lock is special. It's built in a way that only the recipient has the right key to open it. In PGP terms, the session key is the first lock on the box. When you send a message, your device generates a one-time random session key using its internal cryptographic random number generator. It uses that session key to encrypt the actual message. Your device creates a fresh session key for each message. And the special lock that protects the session key is the public-private key pair. Your device generates this pair once for each user, a public key that you can share with everyone and a private key that you keep secret. When you lock up the session key, your software encrypts that session key with the recipient's public key. Only the matching private key on the recipient's side can unlock it. So the final encrypted email contains 2 things. The message is encrypted with the session key, and the session key is encrypted with the recipient's public key. When the recipient opens their email, their PGP software uses their private key to decrypt the session key, and then uses that session key to decrypt the message. To further clarify, the reason that PGP doesn't encrypt the whole message directly with the public-private key pair is because public key encryption is slow and inefficient for large amounts of data. Instead, it uses a hybrid approach: a fast, symmetric session key that does the heavy lifting of encrypting the message, and the public-private key pair that's used only to protect the small session key. All of that to say that PGP protects the content of your email so that only the recipient can read it. There's also also an additional benefit. It can ensure that an email address hasn't been spoofed and that the content of an email hasn't been tampered with. It does this by taking a fingerprint of the message, called a hash, before sending. Your software then signs that fingerprint with your private key. This is your digital signature. When a recipient gets the message, they use your public key to check the signature. If it successfully verifies, they know that the content was not altered and that it really came from the person who controls that private key. So why isn't PGP more widely used? Well, for a long time, it was the standard for encrypted email. But it stayed a niche tool instead of going mainstream for a few important reasons. First, many of the biggest email providers don't want to offer end-to-end encryption because they make a huge amount of money analyzing your email data, building profiles that they can use for advertising. So a big reason it never went mainstream is because the dominant providers have a business model that depends on being able to see your mail. But another reason is that historically, PGP has been notoriously complicated to use. It meant installing command line tools, generating keys by hand, and running cryptic commands. Maybe some of us convinced ourselves that protecting our most private conversations just wasn't worth the effort because the heavy lift of doing so felt too daunting and too technical. Today, things are different. There are now major email providers that do offer end-to-end encryption, and they make it super simple to use. These include platforms like Proton, Tutor, and StartMail. In this video, we're going to focus just on how Proton handles end-to-end encryption, building PGP right into your inbox. Just a reminder, Proton isn't sponsoring this episode. We don't do show sponsors. They're just a privacy-focused platform that I use, and I want to teach you how to make the most of their privacy features. Let's start with in-network emails. So, sending an email from one Proton account to another Proton account. These are automatically end-to-end encrypted using PGP. This applies not just to addresses that end in protonmail.com or pm.me, but also to any custom domain that you host with Proton. So if you own thisismyemail.com and you use Proton as your email provider for that domain, anything sent in-network to and from those Proton-managed addresses will automatically be end-to-end encrypted. In-network just means both people are using Proton Mail no matter what their actual email address looks like. Now, what if you want to send a private email from your Proton account to someone who doesn't use Proton? Well, you have a few options. Let's start with the easiest, password-protected emails. Under the hood, this works a bit differently from PGP. Instead of using the recipient's public key, you choose a password to protect the email with, and Proton uses this password to create a secret key in your browser. The contents and attachments of your email are encrypted before they leave your device, and the recipient gets a link to a secure viewing page. They enter the password, and then they can access the contents of the message and any attachments. This protects your emails from their provider, even if they use a non-private email provider like Gmail. Gmail will only see a notification email with a link, not the message itself. You can either add a password hint to the email, or you can share the password with them out of band, meaning via Signal or some other way that you're connected. These messages, by default, will expire after a certain amount of time, which reduces the liability of messages sitting around indefinitely. For this option, emails are only as strong as the password you pick, so pick a good one. But it's definitely better than letting Gmail read all of your messages by default. You can also use PGP to protect your emails with people outside of Proton. You just have to add their public key manually to your emails. Again, Proton makes this process much easier than it would normally be. When you type an email address into the To field, Proton automatically searches for a public PGP key associated with that address. If they find a key, you'll see a green lock appear next to the recipient, indicating that the message will be encrypted. Now, where is Proton searching for these keys? Proton checks its own network, so it asks, is this a Proton email address? It will also check your contacts list, i.e., has this user saved a key for this contact? We'll talk about that option in a moment. And Proton also checks WKD, which stands for Web Key Directory, on the associated email domain. WKD is a small web standard that lets a domain publish public PGP keys in a fixed well-known place so that email apps can find them automatically. So if you have the domain thisismydomain.com and you want people to find your public PGP key, you put that key in a special folder located at a standard URL path. Email clients like Proton know to look in that exact place to fetch the right public key for each user. If Proton finds a key for a certain address at the associated domain, Proton will automatically end-to-end encrypt your message with it, and you'll see that green padlock icon. Great! Your email has been automatically encrypted using PGP, and only the recipient of the email will be able to use their private key to decrypt it. What if Proton doesn't automatically find someone's PGP key? Well, you can hunt down their key manually and import it. Some people will have their key available on their website, either in plain text or as an ASC file, or something you can convert into an ASC file. Normally, a PGP key is written in ones and zeros that your computer can read. Basically, what an ASC file does is it takes that key and wraps it in readable characters, and it ends up in a format that looks something like this. Once you have their key, you can save it into your Proton contacts. Type the contact into the to field of your email. Then right-click on that address and select View Contact Details. Then click the Settings wheel and go to the Email Settings and select Show Advanced PGP Settings. Under Public Keys, select Upload and upload their public key in an ASC format. Once the key is uploaded, the Encrypt Emails toggle will automatically switch on, and all future emails to that contact will automatically be protected with PGP. You can turn that off at any time and also remove or replace the public key. Super! So you've sent an encrypted email to someone using their PGP key. Now, here's how to share your PGP key from your Proton account with others. You'll want to do this so that people using other email providers can send encrypted emails back to you. Proton automatically generates a public-private key pair for each address that you have configured inside Proton Mail. To access and export these keys from inside your Proton account, you'll first go to Settings, then click All Settings, select Encryption and Keys. Under Email Encryption Keys, you'll have a drop-down menu of all your email addresses associated with your Proton account. Select the address that you want to export the public key for. Under the Action column, click Export Public Key. It will download as an ASC file and ask you where you want to save the file. Now that you've downloaded the public key, how do you share it with people so that they can contact you privately? Well, there are several ways. For pm.me and protonmail.com addresses, Proton publishes your OpenPGP public key in its own WKD automatically. You don't have to do anything. But for any custom domains that you bring to Proton, you control those domains, which means that you're in charge of making sure that people can get the public key associated with your email address on that domain. You can publish WKD yourself on your own domain by serving the key at a special path on your website, or you can delegate WKD to a managed service, for example, by pointing a DNS record at a WKD provider. And if you don't want to use WKD at all, you could upload your key to a public key server like keys.openpgp.org, which gives mail apps another way to discover it. We're not going to go over those setups in this video. Instead, here are simpler ways to share your public key. First, you can post the plain text on your website. To do this, you open the ASC file in a text editor and copy and paste the key. This is what I've done. It's public and visible so that if someone wants to send me an email more privately, they can do so. Another way is to manually send someone your ASC file. Be sure to let them know which email address is associated with this key. But Proton even automates this process for you. You can opt in to automatically attach your public key to every email in case someone wants to send you a private email in reply. To turn this on, go to Settings, click Encryption and Keys, then scroll to External PGP Settings. Then toggle on Attach Public Key. Once this is on, every email that you send will automatically include your public key file as a small ASC text file. PGP can seem daunting, but Proton makes it much easier. In fact, most of the stuff that they do to protect your privacy happens behind the scenes without you needing to do anything at all. Their password option is super easy to use. And if you want to use PGP, they automatically look up recipients' keys, encrypt your messages, and make your key easy for others to use when they reply. Email privacy doesn't have to be painful, and it's more important than most people realize. As Zimmerman explained in his article, Why I Wrote PGP, PGP empowers people to take their privacy into their own hands. There has been a growing social need for it. That's why I wrote it.
It's not clear that democracy can survive governments having omniscience. We're getting the boiled frog treatment. It's hard to get people active against the erosion of privacy because, well, it has gradually eroded over the years, and now people think it's normal.
But surveillance isn't normal, and we need to re-normalize privacy as part of our daily lives. We're honored to have Mr. Zimmerman on our board of advisors at Ludlow Institute. Pioneers like him fought hard so that we could protect our privacy. It's on us to use the tools that they gave us. NBTV is a project of the Ludlow Institute, a non-profit research and media institute focused on advancing freedom through technology. If you want to support our mission, please visit ludlowinstitute.org/donate, and also visit our merch shop for cool clothes that support the mission as well. If you want to try out the stuff that I talked about in this video and send me a PGP encrypted email, grab my public key from the Ludlow website and give it a go. I'll send you a response